All right, Shevuos, good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's share. To thank our annual Talmud Torah sponsor, Tilson Mishpacha Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all the Sherman Drushos this year as a zechus for Besoros Tovos for all of Am Yisrael. Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar Haba Alin L'Tova, Shmuel and Rabin Karapkin, commemoration of the yahrzeit of Shmuel's father, Leonard Karapkin, Lipa Ben Yecheskel HaKohen Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, Meretz Hashem, the Neshama Shavan Aliyah. Michael, was there a sponsorship? Because it's not. What is it? What is it? Shendel Bas. Meretz Hashem, the Turyansky Mishpacha, in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Shendel Bas Mordechai. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the Neshama Slav and Aliyah, the families, Ein Nechama, Kadosh Baruch Hu should, Meretz Hashem, bring home all of our hostages, B'Shalom and B'Karav, and allow our holy soldiers to be successful, B'Chol Ma'asei Yedehem. And because of us, we take the opportunity to express our Tov and to say, Hodu Hashem Kitov Kili Chasron, this day of Yomi Yerushalayim, this day when we celebrate just the most incredible and beautiful miracle of the reunification of the eternal capital of Klal Yisrael. There are things that we take for granted. And we take for granted that in Meretz Hashem, we could just go to the Kosel if we want to. We take for granted that you could walk down the beautiful streets of Mamila. We take for granted that you could go out for dinner in Yerushalayim. We take for granted that we could live in Yerushalayim. But remember again, this is a miracle that for Klal Yisrael is, in the context of our national history, very recent. Very recent. For Klal Yisrael, recent is within the last 500 years. And the last 500 years, and it's like yesterday. That's how it works for us. So for us, we're used to it because many of us never grew up without the unified Yerushalayim. But there are many in this room who, Baruch Hashem, I have no doubt, remember when Yerushalayim was a divided city. Now remember, Yerushalayim was never a divided city. It was never divided spiritually. Because spiritually, it was always whole and always resided in the heart of every single Jew. But it was divided geographically. And Baruch Hashem, to celebrate this incredible miracle. And even though, again, you might say to yourself, well, there are still parts of Yerushalayim that it's difficult for Jews to enter, or still parts of Yerushalayim that maybe we don't have the ability to live in freely. Remember that it's important to understand, while that's a reality, the words of Harabayas Biadenu are not just a historical statement, but Yerushalayim still, as Rav Tzvi Yehuda HaKohen Kook wrote, there's Riboniyut Yehudit, there's Jewish autonomy. There's Jewish rulership, there's Jewish authority. So it's important to understand that even on the Harabayas itself, it's our soldiers, it's our police officers who are there. Okay, there's whatever the arrangement is, but it's important to understand at the end of the day who is in control. It's important to understand that, and that's us. And that's us. After 2,000 years of someone else controlling the gates, we control the gates. So literally, again, it's biadenu. And that is nothing short of miraculous. So we are Zocha Baruch Hashem and Sammy on behalf of the shul. Thank you for the beautiful and uplifting Hallel. So beautiful. So again, however, I always say all these days, however you say Hallel, you don't say Hallel, with a bracha, not a bracha. Okay, I don't understand it how a Yid can't say Hallel. I don't understand it. It blows my mind, and I don't understand how it's said without a bracha. But all right, that's my own that's my own thing. Whatever you want to do, just make sure to go and express your hakaras hatov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in some way, shape, or form, because this is a day of incredible miracles. And it's also important for us to understand that as citizens of this country of the United States of America, which although it is gullus for us, it is still a country that has given us more than any other diaspora existence. It's Memorial Day. Memorial Day, a day in which we remember America's fallen, in which we remember again all of those brave men and women who have given their lives in defense of our liberties. The big difference between, there are many differences between America and Eretz Yisrael, but in Eretz Yisrael, you can't walk three feet without seeing a soldier. So the idea that there are young men and women who are moser nefesh in Eretz Yisrael, that literally, again, they don the holiest uniform that exists, which is the uniform of the Israel Defense Forces. They don it, and they're moser nefesh, so you can't miss it. Like you can't. In America, when was the last time you saw someone in uniform? When the armory was by 7-Eleven on Reisterstown Road. So it used to happen to be like 7-Eleven coffee is very good. So you used to go, sometimes you'd see people in uniform. Now that they closed it down, you don't really see anyone there. So, America's wars are fought thousands of miles away. So we often don't see the servicemen and women, unless, of course, you happen to know them. But they're there. And they're fighting, I'm sure, like in every corner of the globe, protecting our liberties, protecting our security, giving us the freedom to do exactly this, to sit and to learn, to sit in the worship, the ability to safeguard all of the incredible freedoms we have in this country. So it's really important to take the opportunity to express our hakaras hatov to this great nation with all of its flaws, like everything in this world has its flaws. But this is a great nation. This is a great country that has given us something that no other diaspora has. And we must have tremendous hakaras hatov. And for those brave men and women who literally give everything to secure our liberties, people who they will never meet, people they'll never know, we owe them a debt of gratitude beyond words. You know, I saw if you go on YouTube, you can see it's actually quite moving. President Trump was at the graduation for West Point. And the Vice President Vance, was at the Naval Academy. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring to watch these young men and women who are making such idealistic choices to defend our country, to defend our liberties. And the remarks of the President and the Vice President were actually quite beautiful. They recognized a couple of outstanding soldiers. It was really very moving. It's Kedai. It's Kedai. Everybody watches enough junk on YouTube anyway. You might as well watch something good. You might as well watch something meaningful. Right? It's 3 minutes, really beautiful and really inspiring. And more than their statements, it's inspiring to see a new generation. You know, so often the young people we see are the empty-headed, vacuous nothings who are rallying on college campuses, right? Who literally are a waste of space. Ribono Shel Olam should just take back that energy and reallocate it somewhere else because it's ridiculous. But we don't see that there's a whole other young generation of idealistic Americans who actually understand what makes this country great, who actually appreciate the gift of living here, who actually appreciate what it means to be an American and are not spoiled, entitled, brainless masses of glob who just literally, again, forsake every single bracha that we have in this great country. We often get like our screens are flooded with one segment of young America. It's so important to see that there is another segment, and they're great, and they're holy, and they're beautiful, and they're strong, and they're idealistic. And when you watch it, we are proud Jews first, and we're always proud Jews first. But you know what? It's good to be a proud American second. It's good to be a proud and to see what this country has to offer, and to see at the end of the day how great this is. But its greatness is only because of the sacrifice that really the holy men and women of the American Defense Forces are willing to make as well. So on this Memorial Day, we salute our fallen. We express our tremendous hakaras hatov to their families. And Emir Hashem, we should be zocha that life here in this country should become easier, should become better for us, that the anti-Semitism that has reared its ugly head should Emir Hashem diminish. But ultimately, we hope to make our way home. We hope to make our way home to Yerushalayim Habanuyim Hey Rabbi Ameinu. Amen. All right, that's it for today. We're gonna pick up Emir Hashem tomorrow. Okay, fine. We'll get in a little bit of Gemara. Today's daf is Chaf Hey. We'll say these are important things to say. Daf Chaf Hey. Mishnah. That's okay. It's a short daf today. It's not. It's all right. Short daf, right? It's all right. Whatever it is. Good. Says the Mishnah. So we'll say it's actually a really great Mishnah ahead of us today. Echad dvarim shel atzmo ve'echad dvarim shel acherim ve'echad dvarim sheish be'em mamish. So we'll say, see, now the Mishnah is actually going into a lot of the details concerning how Shevuos work. So whether, again, echad dvarim shel atzmo, so whether you're making a Shvuah, and the Shvuah ultimately, again, is about things which impact you, or echad dvarim shel acherim, or the Shvuah impacts things that deal with others. So for example, Rashi points out, I swear I'm going to give you $1,000. So again, that's impacting you. So again, Shvuah that impacts me, I swear I'm going to eat a loaf of bread. Right? That's me. Shvuah that doesn't impact others. Shvuah that impacts, I swear I'm going to give you $1,000. Or ve'echad dvarim sheish be'en mamish, or whether the Shvuah impacts something that has mamashos, that have substance to it, right? Or ve'echad dvarim she'ein bahen mamish, or for example, Shvuahs that have no substance to it. Now take a quick look at Rashi. Rashi is the first short line, she'ein bahen mamish. Rashi says, Trey Gavni Mashma. Now there are two elements to this, two parts to a Shvuah she'ein bahen mamish. He says, Kigon sheina, umashma she'ein bahen aniyah kigon she'ezrok tzor liyam. So for example, what's an example of a Shvuah that doesn't have substance to it? So there are two examples. One of them is, for example, I swear I'm not going to sleep. We saw this at the end of yesterday's daf. So, for example, sleep doesn't really have any type of mamoshos, doesn't have any substance to it, right? Or another type of shua, a shema mamish, could be, I swear I'm going to throw a stone into the sea. Now, what does it matter? So, in other words, the lashon of Eban Mamish means it has no substance, it has no depth to it. Like it doesn't matter. It has zero impact. So we'll see those two definitions play out in the Gemara. Amar, Shevuos she'etein li'ish ploni v'shelo etein shenasati v'shelo nasati. So, for example, I swear I'm going to give $1,000 to Ruvain, or I swear that I'm not going to give $1,000 to Ruvain. V'shelo nasati. Vishalo etein, shenasati v'shenasati, or again, remember past tense, I swear I gave $1,000 to Ruvain, or I didn't give $1,000 to Ruvain. So I will say, so now the Gemara just says Kesad. Now, what we just did is we framed the categories of Shua, right? So category 1 is what we call Dvarim Shal Atzmo, a Shua that impacts me. Category 2, a Shua that impacts someone else. Right? And number 3 category of Shevuos she'ein bahen mamish. Shevuos that have no substance. For example, I will sleep, I won't sleep, I'll throw a stone into the river, I won't throw a stone into the river. Okay, now the Gemara goes through them. Ketzad, what are examples of this? Amar, Shevuos she'etein li'ish ploni. This is an example of a shua that impacts someone else. Shevuos she'etein li'ish ploni, v'shelo etein. I will give $1,000. I won't give $1,000 to Ruvain. Shenasati v'shelo nasati. I did give $1,000 to Ruvain. I didn't give $1,000 to Ruvain. Now, we'll say those are examples of shuas that impact another person. What's an example of a shua she'ein b'mamish, doesn't have substance? She'ishon v'shelo ishon. I swear I will sleep, or I swear that I won't sleep. She'yashanti v'shelo yashanti. I swear that I did sleep, or I swear that I didn't sleep. She'ezrok tzrar liyam v'shelo ezrok. Or I swear that I will throw a pebble into the water, into the sea, or I didn't throw. Shezarakti v'shelo zarakti. I did throw, or I didn't throw. Good. Those are just all examples of the aforementioned cases in the Mishnah. Rabbi Shmuel says, Eino chayiv ela ala asid lava. Okay, so we'll say, so this machlokis over here is going to take up a lot of time, a lot of real estate in the coming daf. Rabbi Shmuel says like this: one is not chayiv. Eino chayiv ela ala asid lava. One is not chayiv unless, of course, they swear a prospective, a future tense shvuah. This is Rabbi Shmuel. We've seen this Rabbi Shmuel already a number of times throughout Maseches Shevuos, that Rabbi Shmuel holds that shvuas bitui. Because remember again, Abosai, that's what we're talking about over here in this daf, shvuas bitui, which is literally again a declarative oath. The reason I'm saying this is because today, actually, very coming attractions, we are actually going to go ahead and see another category of shvuah Mirat Hashem today as well. But for now, we're focused on Shevuos Bitui, which is a declarative Shevuah. Rabbi Shmuel says, Midaraisa, the only type of Shevuos Bitui that works is a future tense prospective Shevuah. Eno chayiv ela al ha'asid lavo shne'emar lahara o lehetiv. Because Rabbi say, when the pasuk itself talks about the Shevuos Bitui, how does it talk about? Lahara o lehetiv, future tense. Future tense. So therefore, Rabbi Shmuel says, Shevuos Bitui is only future tense. Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbi Shmuel, if that's the case, if that's the case, then ultimately, again, a Shevuos Bitui should really only be on something that has hara or hatava. What does that mean? That either has a positive effect or a negative effect. Right? In other words, a Shevuos Bitui has to have a dramatic effect. Rabbi Akiva says, why? Now, let's see what's happening over here. Rabbi Shmuel says, the only type of Shevuos Bitui that could be is what? Is a prospective future shvuah. Future shvuah, why? Because that's how the pasuk frames it, right? Remember again, both say, "O nefesh tisha v'lavate b'sasayim lahara o lehetiv." If you articulate a shvuah, to do something good or to do something bad, future tense. Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbi Shmuel, if you're going to be such a literalist, then that means the only type of shvuah bitui is a shvuah that has an impact either for bad or for good. Okay, which Rabbi say would mean, for example, a shvuah where I swear I'm going to eat a loaf of bread. According to Rabbi Shmuel, should that be a shvuas bitui? No. Why not? Why not? It doesn't have a bad or a good impact. In other words, it's in the grand scheme of the world, right? It's meaningless. So Rabbi keeps saying to Rabbi Shmuel, if you're going to be such a literalist, then that means that shvuas bitui should only be something that has either a demonstrable positive or negative effect. Shvuah, the Gemara says, "Dvarim she'ein ban hatava v'hara minayin." How do you know? Now, again, I will say, obviously, that's not true, right? How do we know that's not true? Because that's been our entire Masechta, right? This entire time we've been focusing on the idea that, for example, even Rabbi Shmuel agrees, I swear I'm going to eat a loaf of bread today. Even Rabbi Shmuel agrees that's what? That's a Shevuos bitui. Now, we'll say again, is that a good or a bad Shevuah? Is that a good? No, it's a Shevuah that doesn't have a demonstrable bad or good effect. It just doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But yet we know it's a Shevuos bitui. So Rabbi Shmuel, how do you explain that? So the Gemara says, Amrlo meiri boy hakasov. No. From the fact that now both say in the pasuk itself, there's another phrase, L'chol asher yivate. The Shevuah goes on, anything you will articulate. Rabbi Shmuel says, there's a riboy. So lahara'u lehetev is just kind of like the general statement, but l'chol asher yivate bisvasayim, anything you articulate with your mouth, that shows any type of Shevuah. Rabbi Akiva says exactly. Amar lo im riba ha'kosav l'kach, riba kosav l'kach. Rabbi Akiva says exactly. The same way that phrase, l'chol asher yivate bisvasayim, means, right, is a riboy, comes to include even Shevuos that don't have a ra or tov effect. So Rabbi Akiva says, l'chol asher yivate also comes to include what? Not only future, prospective Shevuos, but also past retrospective Shevuos as us. So both say, write this down. This is big stuff over here. So this is big machlokes in Masechah Shevuos about the core, the nature of Shevuos bitui. If you don't have this machlokes down clear, you are going to be lost. Now you may be thinking, no problem, I've been lost for a while, right? I've been lost most of my life, most of Masechah Shevuos. Rabbi say, just because you've been lost until now doesn't mean you have to remain lost. Sometimes getting lost is something that happens to us, but remaining lost is a decision you make. So right now, 8:32, Monday morning, Yom Yerushalayim, Memorial Day, you decide. You are lost. We're all lost. Do you want to stay lost? Or are you choosing to take a different direction? Choose now, because we're about to go on. So I'll say, so Lamaisa, what do we have? We have this fundamental machlokes over to Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. And this is a core machlokes in Shevuos bitui. So Rabbi Shmuel holds two shitas, only two. Rabbi Shmuel holds Shevuos bitui, only future tense. Only future tense. That's it. So for example, according to Rabbi, now again, I will say, now what does that mean practically? So we're going to see it's more like a liability issue than anything else. We'll have to see what it means. But again, for now, Rabbi Shmuel says only Shevuos bitui is a future tense Shevuah. Shevuah she'ochal, I swear I will eat. I swear I won't eat. But past tense Shevuos, not Shevuos bitui. Rabbi Akiva says no, not true at all. Rabbi Akiva says Shevuos bitui is both prospective, future tense, and retrospective past tense. That's it. The drasha, we don't have to chazer over again, but that's the machlokes. Says the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan. Now, got through Mishnah. Tana Rabbanan. Chomer ben Adam b'Shvuos. We'll say another very important idea. So again, Chomer Shevuos ben Adam, Chomer ben Adam b'Shvuos, Chomer b'Shvuos ben Adam. So we'll say there's a Chumrah that Nadam have over Shevuos and Chumrah that Shevuos have in Dar. Now again, I will say, I'll tell you, a good way to remember this, because we're going to have to, what's the fundamental distinction between Shevuos and Nadam? I'll give you just a simple mnemonic. Nach Shag, that's it. Nedarim, Chefza, Shevuos, Gavra. That's the distinction, right? When you nach shag, when you go ahead and you make a neder devolves upon the object. Shvuah is a prohibition that you go ahead and take upon yourself. Again, we'll see it. So nach shag, neder chefza, shvuah gavra. So the Gemara says there's a chumrah that Nadarim have over Shevuos and a chumrah that Shevuos have over Nadarim. You're going to see why you need that distinction in just a moment. Chumrah ben Nadarim, so there's a chumrah of Nadarim. What is it? Here it is. Shanadarim cholim al dvar mitzvah kidvar harashos. That a neder prohibition could devolve upon a mitzvah just like a mundane item. Now, both say, take a look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, Nadarim cholim al dvar is very important. Konam sukkah shani oser, lulav shani notel, aser. Here it is. We'll say, watch, this is so important. I take a neder. I hereby write, Konam sukkah zu alai. Konam sukkah zu alai. Right? I take a neder that this sukkah should be usher to me. I will say, nedarim, it works. Right? It works. Why? Because when you make a neder, what are you doing? What you're doing is you're prohibiting that sukkah on you. Okay, so what do you have to do? What do you have to do? Go to a different sukkah, right? As opposed to, for example, I swear I'm not going to observe the Yom Tov of Sukkot. I take a Shevuah she'eni yoshev b'sukkah. What's the halacha? What's the halacha there? What's the halacha? The Shevuah is void. Why is the Shevuah void? Because your Shevuah is contrary to Torah law. Why, Rabbi said? Because Shevuah, you're taking a prohibition upon yourself. You can't take upon yourself not to observe the Yom Tov of Sukkot, but you can make a neder that a certain sukkah should be asur to you. You could do that, right? Or I take a neder that lulav and esrog should be asur to me. Okay, so use a different lulav and esrog. Shvuah she'eni notel lulav, that's not going to work. Why? Nachshag, right? Because the neder is on the chefza, right? So therefore, again, a neder can go ahead and prohibit even a ritual. So I could take a neder not to put on that pair of tefillin. Okay, put on a different pair of tefillin. I can't take a shvuah not to put on tefillin, because then that would prohibit me as a person, as a gavra, from putting on tefillin. It's a very important distinction. That's why a neder can devolve even upon a mitzvah item, just like a mundane item. But if you take a shvuah not to do a mitzvah, right, the shvuah is void. Why? Because when you take a shvuah not to do a mitzvah, you're creating an isser upon yourself. You can't create an isser upon yourself to do something, because again, that's what we call masna abasha kasav batorah. That is going ahead and that is stipulating against a pre-existing obligation of the Torah. You can't do it. We'll say nachshag. I'm just going to keep on saying because I'm very proud. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it, actually. Nachshag is my contribution to Klal Yisrael. So the Gemara says as follows. Good. Mashein b'Shevuos. Chomer b'Shevuos. What's the chumrah that Shevuos has over Nedarim? Shevuos chalos al davar she'ein bo mamish kedavar sheyish bo mamish. The chumrah that a Shevuah has is that what? That a Shevuah ultimately, again, devolves upon something that is even amorphous, or that doesn't have substance. That doesn't have substance, just like something that does have substance. Whereas that's not the case by Nedarim. So we'll say, as we saw in the Mishnah, for example, you could go ahead and make a neder. You can make a shvuah not to sleep. Shvuah shalish, which we'll discuss in just a moment. Right? Why? Because remember again, because shvuah is not really devolving upon the object. Shevuah is devolving upon me. So I can prohibit myself from anything, whether, again, the object has substance or doesn't. A neder, because, again, it devolves upon the object, can only devolve upon something that has substance. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says over here, Neder eino chal al hashena kegon konam she'eni yoshen. The konam lashon hekdishu v'amai lechol hekdish aval konam inoi b'shena alter. Fine. So again, we'll see the ways that you can make nedarim chal on sleep as well. But again, we'll say that's our fundamental distinction. So again, nach shag, the neder devolves on the chefza, the shvuah devolves on the gavra, on the individual, and therefore these two distinctions. A neder can devolve even upon a mitzvah item, just like a mundane item, whereas a shvuah cannot. But a shvuah could devolve upon something that doesn't have substance, whereas a neder cannot. Incredible. Let's go weiter. Okay, so So for example, I will say the Mishnah's example of a neder, of a shvuah that impacts other people. I swear I'm going to give Ruvain something, or I swear I'm not going to give Ruvain something. So the Gemara says, "My etain, what's the case? What are you giving to Ruvain?" The Gemara says, if we're talking about that Ruvain is poor and I'm giving Ruvain tzedakah, so Moshe Omeid Me'arsinahu, I have an obligation to give tzedakah. I have an obligation to give tzedakah. But say very important. The Gemara says, I just want to point out how fascinating this is. You know, we often translate tzedakah as charity. Rabbi Shmuel Hirsch says that's not etymologically true. Tzedakah, ultimately, again, the shorish of tzedakah is tzedek, which means justice. I will say, when you give tzedakah, that is not an act of kindness and an act of charity. That is an act of justice. The way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world is, there are people who have, and there are people who don't. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says the way it works is, if you have, you must go ahead and give to those who don't. It's not something nice, it's not something beautiful, it's not something above and beyond and generous. It is the strict obligation of the law. Now, how much I have to give is a discussion, And then if I go ahead and I go above and beyond what my obligation is, so for example, right, halacha l'maisa, what do you have to do? A Jew opens his hands, you have to give. You have to give. A Jew asks you for money, you have to give. Now, how much you have to give is up to you. You could give $1, you could give a penny, you could do whatever you want. But there's no such thing in this world as a Jew opening his hand and me turning a blind eye to it. You can't do that. Like I said, you want to keep a roll of pennies in your talis bag, give it out of pennies, that's your dollar. That's your business, or a roll of dollars, or a good script, whatever you want to do, but you have to give. You have to give. That's a doraisa. There's not a judgment, there's not a this. Again, you want to give real money, do your due diligence. Do your due diligence. You want to give above your, right? Every Jew, if possible. In other words, if it doesn't set you back financially or doesn't cause you not to pay your bills, should give meiser. Person should allocate 1/10 of their earnings for tzedakah purposes. A person has the ability to go ahead and give above and beyond meiser. Matovu manoim. That's incredible. But it's important to understand that those concepts are not charitable. Those concepts are tzedek. That's the way. If you have, that means Chash Baruch Hu gave it to you so you could be the custodian to give to someone else. So the Gemara says, look what the Gemara is saying over here. What's the Shevuah? If I'm saying, I swear I'm going to give to Ruvain, right, and Ruvain's an ani, I'm already obligated to do that. Mushva v'omed mehar sinaihu. I'm already obligated to do that. Like, in other words, I want to say, you hear the Lashon over here? Obligated. In other words, like I said, tzedakah is not charitable, discretionary donations. Who you give it to is your discretion, right? But lamaisa, again, I'm adjured. I have an obligation as a yid that if I have, and someone else doesn't, of course I have to give. So Gemara says, Shnei nason titein lo. Rabbi say, this is it. Listen to the pasuk. Nason titein lo is a declarative statement. You must give to him. The rest of the pasuk is, V'lo yira levavcha b'sitcha lo, ki biglal hadavar hazeh yivarecha Hashem Elokecha b'chol maasecha b'chol mashlach yadcha. Now again, the interesting part about tzedakah is, even though I'm obligated to do it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you do it, I will bless you tremendously. It's interesting, right? Even though I'm obligated to do it, so if I do it, I'm just fulfilling my obligation. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, if you do it, because I know that it's hard, I'll give you even more. So again, if Ruvain's an ani, then what's the point of the Shevuah? Ella matana liyasher. Rather, we must be talking about a case over here where Ruvain's wealthy. Ruvain's wealthy, and what am I doing? I'm giving him a gift. Okay, so I'm giving him a nice gift. So l'maisa, again, I'm taking a Shevuah to do so. Next, first white line. I swear that I'm going to sleep or not going to sleep. Ini, so the Gemara says, 1 second. Well, let's talk about this Shevuah a little bit. Does such a Shevuah like this work? 1 second. Now, both say, now what this sounds like over here is like an open-ended Shevuah, right? I swear that I'm not going to sleep. What does that even mean? What does that mean? In other words, we'll say, there's a certain amount of time that a person could go without sleeping. For some, it's like 25 minutes, right? Again, right? I would say, but lamaisa, it depends only in a shir or in shul, right? But lamaisa, again, what does this mean? How can you make an open-ended shvuah like this that you're not going to sleep? So the Gemara says, after all, if a person says, I swear that I'm not going to sleep for 3 days, so again, I will say it's interesting. Chazal said it's impossible to go more than 3 days without sleep. So what do we do? So what if a person makes such a shvuah like this? Malkin also, we go to him and give him malchus, v'yashen altar, and he goes to sleep immediately. Now, what that means is, he doesn't have to go to sleep immediately, but the idea is that we see this shvuah as just an impossible shvuah. So he made a false oath, or whatever we're going to call it, a violation of a shvuah's bitui. Therefore, he'll get malchus and move on. To which the Gemara says, you're right, hasam da amar gimel, hachad lo amar gimel. That's where he said 3 days. In our case over here, he didn't say 3 days. So we'll say it's interesting. How do we interpret a shvuah? That essentially shvuah shelo ishan essentially means, I swear I'm going to go without sleep for as long as I can. That's how we understand it. And such a shvuah works. You swear to go without sleep for as long as you can go without sleep. Good. Another example. Now, both remember, these were examples of shvuahs that have no substance to them, no mamoshas. So that's right. Itmar. Shvuah shezarak ploni tzra liyam v'shelo zark. So let's listen to this. Interesting case over here. I swear, here's the case. I swear that Ruvain threw a stone into the ocean, right? Or I swear that Ruvain didn't throw a stone into the ocean. I will say, what is the impact of such a shvuah like this? So Rav Amar Chayiv Rav says this is a proper Shevuos bitui, and therefore, again, if I violate it, or if it turns out that he did, or he did, right, he not in conformance with the Shmuel Bichayiv. Shmuel says, no, I'm potter. Rav says, Rav Amar Chayiv, Isei Balav Hein. Rav says it works. Why is this a proper Shevuos bitui? Because Rav holds that what you need for a Shevuos bitui is the ability to articulate it in both positive and negative. And as long as you articulate in both positive and negative, it works. So therefore, again, I swear Reuven did throw the stone into the ocean, or I swear that Reuven didn't throw the stone into the ocean. Shmuel Potter, Shmuel says Potter, why? Let's say Belahaba. Shmuel says in order for a Shua to be a Shevuos bitui, it has to be able to be a prospective Shua, future Shua. Now, interestingly enough, I can't swear that Reuven will throw the stone into the river. Why not? Why not? I don't control Reuven. I will say such a lot of good pieces of Musar today. The one thing you do not control in this world is other people. We spend so much time trying to control what other people do, how they're going to act, how they're going to talk, and the truth is, it's an exercise in futility. The only thing you control in this world is you. So therefore, I will say, watch this. So Rav says, this is a proper Shevuos bitui, right? Because according to Rav, in order to be a Shevuos bitui, all you need is for the ability for it to be phrased in the positive and the negative. So therefore, again, I could swear, Reuven did throw the rock, Reuven didn't throw the rock. It works. Shmuel says it doesn't work. Why? Because for a Shevuah to be a Shevuos bitui, you have to be able to phrase it in the future tense. And since you can't swear that Reuven will or won't do something, therefore, again, it's not a Shevuos bitui, and therefore you're potter. So the Gemara says, Lema beplukta Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva come in. Oh, this seems to be the same machlokes of our Mishnah. Same machlokes of our Mishnah, right? Rabbi Shmuel holds that for a Shevuos bitui to be a Shevuos bitui, it has to be able to be phrased lahaba, and Rabbi Akiva disagrees. This none. Rabbi Shmuel Omer Eino Chayiv Ela Ala Asid Lavo Shene'amar La Hara O Leheitiv Amar Rabbi Akiva Im Kain Ein Li Ela Dvarim Sheish Ben Hara V'Atava. This is just our Mishnah, right? Dvarim Sheish Ben She'ein Ben Hara V'Atava Minayin Amar Lo Meiribu Yakasav. Rabbi Shmuel says no. That's what I will say. It's just the Mishnah. That's what I'm explaining it. It's just the Mishnah again. Amar Lo Im Riba Hakasav Lekach Riba Hakasav Lekach. So what I'm saying? This is our Machlokes in the Mishnah. Rabbi Shmuel holds that for a Shevuos bitui, to be a Shevuos bitui, you have to be able to phrase it in the future. Rabbi Akiva says, no, that's from the riboy of the pasuk. Even past tense Shevuos work. So it must be Rav Damak Rabbi Akiva. Rav holds like Rabbi Akiva. Ushmuel Damak Rabbi Shmuel. Shmuel holds like Rabbi Shmuel. Incredible. To which the Gemara says, no. Alibid Rabbi Shmuel kuli amalo pligi. But say, in accordance to Rabbi Shmuel's position, that a Shevuos bitui has to be phrased in the future, has to have the ability to be phrased in the future. Everyone agrees. Hashta milsa di'ise belahaba lo hashta, Gemara says, lo pligi. Hashta milsa di'ise belahaba lo mechayiv ala Rabbi Shmuel l'sha'avar. Milsa delesa belahaba mi boy. So we'll say, see, interestingly enough, everyone agrees that ultimately, again, that something, that ultimately something that has the ability to be future tense, Rabbi Shmuel is not going to be mechayev you when it's phrased in the past tense. The shaila is something that cannot be phrased in future tense. What does Rabbi Shmuel do with that? So keep ligi, where does the machlokes come up? The Gemara says, Alibid Rabbi Akiva. The machlokes is really in Rabbi Akiva's position. How so? Rav Rabbi Akiva. So Rav clearly was Rabbi Akiva. Because remembering, I will say, what was our case? Right? I swear that Reuven threw the stone into the river. That's my oath. So again, Rav says you're chayiv. Okay, so that works beautifully according to Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva definitely holds that even a past tense shvuah will be a Shevuos bitui. The Gemara says, keep Rav Rabbi Akiva. Ushmuel will say like this: Ad kan lo kam mechayv Rabbi Akiva hasam l'sha'avar ela milsa de'isei belahaba mechayv Rabbi Akiva l'sha'avar. So essentially, Shmuel will say like this: even Rabbi Akiva still holds that the shvuah has to have the ability to have a future tense version, right? When the shvuah can have a future tense version, Rabbi Akiva will agree that even there's liability for the past tense version. But again, Shmuel posits that even Rabbi Akiva will agree that if the shvuah can't be made, there's no version of it that can be made in future tense, even Rabbi Akiva will agree that the Shvuah does not work. Shabbosai, what we're doing right now is we're kind of removing Rabbi Shmuel from the equation and making this machlokes according to Rabbi Akiva. So here we go. I swear that Ruvain threw a stone into the river. Let's say it turns out Ruvain didn't throw a stone into the river. Am I chayiv for violation of a Shevuos bitui? Rav says yes. Why does Rav say yes? Easy. Rav holds like Rabbi Akiva. Like Rabbi Akiva, Shmuel says you're pater. It's not a Shevuos bitui. But the Gemara wants to suggest that even Shmuel says I also like Rabbi Akiva. But even Rabbi Akiva, who says that you could be chayiv for a past tense Shvuah, holds that what? There's only liability for a past tense Shvuah when that Shvuah ultimately can be made in a future tense version. But if the Shevuah doesn't have a future tense version, even Rabbi Akiva will agree that that is not a proper Shevuos bitui. So let's say perhaps that this machlokes is actually a bigger machlokes. That this machlokes is the machlokes in Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir and the Rabbanan. What's that machlokes? This nan. Here we go, boss. Fascinating machlokes. Nishpa levatel samitzvah v'lo bitel pater. If I swore to negate a mitzvah, for example, I swear I'm not putting on tefillin. But I will say, but the good news is, but I put on tefillin. What's the halacha? V'lo bitel pater. Ultimately, I'm pater, which makes sense. Why? Because a shvua to negate a mitzvah is what? Is void. What happens if I swore to put on tefillin, right? But I did not put on tefillin, v'lo kiyem, pater. Ultimately, I'm also pater, right? I'm also pater. Why? Because I will say, any time you're swearing regarding a mitzvah, essentially your shvua is void. Shahaya bedin shechayiv kidiv Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir. In reality, I really should be chayiv for that. In other words, in a case where I swore to uphold the mitzvah, but I did not do so, I really should be chayiv for that. Why? And of course, Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir. What Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir say? Dam Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir. Both say 25 bichaf heyam days, 5 lines down. Dam Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir umaim harashos sheina mushva mehar Sinai. So now listen to this. When it comes to rashos, what's a rashos? Any non-binding event, right? Non-binding event, something that I'm not something I'm not obligated to from Sinai. Harehu chayev aleh. So we'll say, now listen to Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir's logic. If a shvuah makes you obligated in something for which you did not have prior obligation, then mitzvah shemushva aleh mehar Sinai eino din shehei chayev aleh. So it's an interesting logic. Rabbi Yehuda says, if the power of a shvuah is to create a binding obligation for a non-binding act, then alachas kama v'kama, shvuah should work to create obligation for what? Something you were already obligated to do. Which makes sense. It just reverse logic, but it actually makes a lot of sense. Amrulo, they said to Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir, no. Im amarta b'shvuas harashos shekein asaba lav kehein. So I will say, here's the difference. With a regular shvuah, you could take something. Shasiz about lav kehein. You could take. Rashi says, "Dichsiv behedja lahara o lahetiv demashik kon ocha v'lo ocha lo bay." So you could take something that was otherwise permitted and make it prohibited. Tamar b'shvuas mitzvah shekein lo asaba lav kehein. The way a shvuah works, the Gemara says, they say, Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir is, a shvuah could be phrased in both the positive and the negative. Whatever you're taking a shvuah about, you should be able to say, I will do this, or I won't do this. When it comes to mitzvos, you can't say that. It's true. You can make a shvuah that says, I swear I will do something. I swear I'll put on tefillin. I swear I'll keep Shabbos. That's beautiful. The problem is you cannot phrase it in the negative of, I won't do this. And again, the pasuk itself, when it speaks about Shevuos bitui, phrases it as how? Lahara or lehetiv, which we're understanding over here is to do something or not to do something. Shabbos says, interestingly enough, what do you see from here? The Gemara wants to suggest that Lamaisa, again, even Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir at least entertains the possibility that a shvuah really should be able to devolve upon a mitzvah. Neima Rav Damek Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir. So let's say that Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir, Ushmuel da Amar Kirabanan, and Ali with Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir, and Shmuel holds like the Rabbanan, who answers Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir, to which the Gemara says no. Kuli amalo pligi, to which the Gemara says Kuli amalo pligi, hashta lav vehein lo boy la ba l'sha'avar boy. The Gemara says, again, if Lamais at the end of the day, if they're saying that you don't need lav and hain, if you don't need the ability to phrase it in the positive and the negative, then Lamais, again, would they hold that it has to be in the future and the past? That would make any sense. Keep ligi. Where does the machlokes come up? Aliba dirabanan. The machlokes comes up in the aforementioned position of the Rabbanon. Shmuel kirabanan. So Shmuel holds like the Rabbanon. V'Rav kilo mechavi Rabbanon v'lav v'hein. So the chsev lahara lahetiv behedja. When do the Rabbanon say that you're not going to be chai for a Shevuos bitui? That's when it can't be phrased in the positive and the negative. Because Rabbi say the need to be able to phrase a Shevuos bitui in the positive and the negative, that's explicitly biblical. That's lahara lahetiv. So we'll say it's interesting, by the way. Lahara lahetiv is being understood right now as Torah tells us for a Shevuos bitui to be binding. Whatever shvuah you're making, you have to be able to phrase it in both the positive and the negative. Aval lahaba ulisha'avar. The meribuya dekra asu mechaybi. Mechaybi. So Gemara says, however, when it comes to lahabal sha'avar, now both say, where do we learn out that a shvuah has to be both future and tense? Where do we learn that out from? That's not explicit. Where is that learned out from? That's learned from a ribuy. What's the ribuy? Lahara o lahetiv, the extra phrase, the extra phase. So I both say it's quite fascinating to contemplate over here that there's two things that are unfolding over here, right? So here's what do you know. There's a Shevuos bitui. Shevuos bitui is a declarative Shevuah. Now, the fundamental machlokes is what are the components of that Shevuah. So it seems to be the one piece that almost everyone, maybe not Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, but the one piece that everyone agrees on is Lara Lahetiv teaches me that what? In order for a Shevuos bitui to be binding, you must be able to phrase it in both the positive and the negative. Now, interestingly enough, there's another riboy, right? L'chol vates vasayim. What do you do with that? So again, Rabbi Akiva uses it. Rabbi Shmuel seems not to darshan it in our Mishnah, and Rabbi Akiva ultimately uses it to teach us what? It's both future tense Shevuos, although future tense is learned out from the Hara Lehetiv as well, and past tense Shevuos. But I just want to point out, the need for a Shevuah to be phrased in the positive and negative is explicitly biblical. The need for a Shevuos bitui to be able to work future tense and past tense is from a riboy. It's not explicit. So because it's not explicit, that point, that particular nekuda is subject to machlokes. Let's go back to Maser Rav Hamnuna. So Rav Hamnuna raised the kasha. So lo achalti hayom v'lo einachti tefillin hayom. So let's listen to this. I make a statement. What's my statement? I didn't eat today. Now again, I'm not making a shvuah. I'm just making a statement. I didn't eat today. I didn't put on tefillin today. So what happens? Ruvain hears me. He says, "Mashbiach, do you swear? Do you swear that you didn't put on tefillin today? You didn't eat today?" Va'amar amen. And I said, "Yeah, I did. I swear. I swear." And it turns out that what? I ate or I put on tefillin. Chayiv. Ultimately, again, I'm chayiv. So the Gemara says, "Bishlam lo achalti isei b'lo ochal." So I understand why I'm chayiv for the statement that I didn't eat or that I ate. Why? Because again, that shvuah could be phrased in both ways. I did eat or I didn't eat. But why should I be chayiv about the tefillin? But why should I be chayiv a shvuas bitui if I swore that I didn't put on tefillin? After all, again, you can't take a shvuah like that. Maybe I could take a shvuah. I swear I will put on tefillin. But I certainly what? I certainly can't take a shvuah that's what? That I swear that I didn't put on tefillin. So why should there be liability for that case? Who most of love, who mafarik love, it's studin katani. No, there's two components to that case. Lo achalti lekarban, lo henachti lemalkus. Oh, so I will say, so this we're going to get into a little bit more in tomorrow's daf. That when it comes to liability for shvuas, there's really two things. When you violate a shvuas bitui, so ultimately again there's liability for for a carbon oleviorate. However, again, there are other times where you could be in violation of an oath, where although there is no carbonic liability, ultimately what? There's malchus. So for example, if I say I did not eat today, and what happens? Ruben says, yeah, do you swear? And I say yes. And then it turns out I did eat. I'm chayv a carbon oleviorate. Why? Because that's a good shvuas bitui. Because that can be phrased as I did eat or I didn't eat. I did eat or I didn't eat. Right? But lamaisa, if same thing, I swear I didn't put on tefillin today. Right? What was the case? Yeah, I swear I didn't put on tefillin today. Ruben says, really, you swear? I say, yeah. So ultimately, again, then it turns out I didn't put on tefillin. So we'll say that's not really a proper shvuas bitui. Why not? Because although you could swear you're going to put on tefillin, you can't swear what? You didn't put on tefillin. So what? But yet, I'm liable. What am I liable? We're going to see what I'm liable for is shvuas sheker, not shvuas bitui. I'm liable for taking a false oath not liable for Shevuos Bitoy. We'll say one more line, then we're going to stop. We have another minute. Well, like Kabbalah and Masiv Rava. So we'll say, here it is, then we're going to stop. Masiv Rava. Rava says, Ezu Shevuos Shav. What's a Shevuos Shav? So we'll say, we've seen this before. Chazara. Nishba Lashana say, Adula Adam. Shevuos Shav is where you swear to go ahead and change something that is known to people, a known truth. For example, Va'amar. Al Amud Shal Evan Shu Shal Zav. Va'asig says, for example, I swear about this pillar that's made of stone. I swear that it's gold. So that's a Shevuos Shav. So Va'amar Ula V'hu Shenikir L'Gimel B'nei Adam. Only if that truth is known to at least 3 people. Taima de nikar, ha lo nikar, over mishum shvas bitoy. So we'll say, now the reason ultimately, again, that I'm in violation is because it's known to at least 3 people. If it wasn't known to 3 people, then apparently I'd be in violation of a shvas bitoy. Va'amai. But why should that be a shvas bitoy? Ha eno b'yehei shel zav. You can't phrase that in the future tense. Hu mosiv la v'hu mefarik la nikar over mishum shvas shav. If the truth is known to at least 3 people, then ultimately I'm in violation of Shevuos Shav. Lo nikar over mishum Shevuos Sheker. Ultimately, again, if it's not known, then I'm in violation of Shevuos Sheker. So both say, again, I'll stop over here. We're going to pick up with it. Don't worry. We're going to pick up with this tomorrow. But I just want to point out what's dramatic about this is 3 categories. 3 categories. Number 1, Shevuos Bitoy. What do you need for a Shevuos Bitoy? What do you need? What do you need? At least what you need is number 1, it has to be able to be phrased for future and past tense. That's number 1, right? Halacha l'maisa again, lahaba or l'sha'avar. Future tense, past tense. That's number 1. Number two, positive and negative. I can do it or I can't do it. Shevuos shav, that's nishba l'shanos es hayadua. I swear to change a reality. And again, now it's introduced us, we'll have to expand on this tomorrow. What does that mean? It's a reality that's known to at least 3 people. Then it's a Shevuos Shav. If you swear falsely, but it's not known to 3 people, then what? That's called Shevuos Sheker. And I will say, what's the liability? So again, for Shevuos Shav, we'll see what the liability is, but for Shevuos Sheker, Malkus. So I will say, now that we've got our 3 categories, Emir Tzim will expand on it tomorrow. Shkoyach, everyone. How are you? You can, except that would be a problematic neder. Then you'd get into some significant liability. Yeah, then that would probably be void.
Shevuos
on Shabbos to what?
I'm not very different
I don't know what it would do. Yeah, to me,